Earthworm Jim is probably one of the most well-known game characters outside of company mascots from the mid-90s. He was everywhere, from games to cartoon shows, comics and even foodstuffs. For those who've never played Earthworm Jim, it's a side-scrolling run-and-gun style platformer in which our hero, Jim, must take on a variety of villains in order to rescue Princess What's-Her-Name. That's actually her name, Princess What's-Her-Name. Jim is just a normal earthworm, hence the game's title, who wears a suit allowing him to behave more like a human. In between many of the platform stages, you get to take part in a bonus stage of sorts called And the Asteroids. In this stage, you must guide Jim through an asteroid belt racing against the evil Psycho. If you beat Psycho, the following stage will start as normal, but should you lose, then you'll be forced to take on Psycho in a special boss battle. There was also a special Sega Channel version of Earthworm Jim. This version included a secret room, which, when reached by the first 200 players, would display a password and a toll-free telephone number. Those that called the number were awarded prizes. Very nice.
Ruby! Oh, Millie! Ruby! Plasma! Plasma!
Earthworm Jim.
Not long after the Mega Drive game release came the Super Nintendo version. This version has altered graphics, which I quite like, thanks to the altered backgrounds and special effects. It's not all perfect though, since the game is missing some sound effects and one of the levels from the Mega Drive version. I also think that the game is a little tougher. I'm not quite sure why, but it may be that the response of Jim isn't as quick as it is on the Mega Drive original.
Earthworm Jim.
Special!
third release was for the Mega CD. Unlike a lot of Western Mega CD games, this was much more than just a standard Mega Drive version with some added CD audio. Earthworm Jim Special Edition, as it was called, plays just like the Mega Drive original, but now includes extended stages and an all-new stage called Big Brute. The game has also been given a boost in animation with an additional 1000 frames. There's also new stage intro screens, extra background detail, and a few little fixes to stage design. And what CD remake can go without an all-new arranged soundtrack? But wait, there's more. Completing the game on different difficulty settings will now award you with different endings. So, as you can see, this is much more than just the Mega Drive game ported to the Mega CD.
Plasma!
There are two versions of Earthworm Jim for the PC. We are now looking at the DOS port, which is actually different than the Windows 95 version. Unlike that, which was based upon the Mega CD game, the DOS version is based upon the Mega Drive version, but keeps the Mega CD soundtrack. This was ported by Rainbow Arts and, as you can see, features all new redrawn graphics, yet still based upon the Mega Drive version. It plays differently though. For a start, it's much tougher and has a few annoyances, such as on stage 1 where the pulley doesn't reset when you fall off halfway across, making it impossible to complete the stage. Also, due to the amount of bloody crows everywhere, the gun will run out very quickly. I also don't feel this DOS port feels as snappy as the original game. Eurocom ported a downsized version of Earthworm Jim to the Game Boy. How does Jim fare on Nintendo's black and white portable? Well, first impressions are good. Even though things are scaled back quite a bit, we can still recognise the stages, as we can with the music. Sadly, Eurocom have really messed up the difficulty setting on this one. The enemies which maul you really do drain your energy fast. I mean, way too fast. This makes the game more difficult than it needs to be. It's a shame because this really is quite an impressive port for the Game Boy. Jim also made his way over to Sega's handheld, the Game Gear, and it's 100% the same as the Game Boy version, but now in colour. Strangely though, this port runs slower and it has nothing to do with NTSC or PAL since the Game Gear is universal. Very strange. Released only in Brazil is the Master System port of the Game Gear version. It only contains 4 levels mind you, and is also missing the boss in the What the Heck stage. It does offer some advantages over the Game Gear port, such as being able to see more of the stage and in turn where enemies are hiding out, but besides that, it's the same game. Seven years after Earthworm Jim made his debut on the Mega Drive, Game Titan ported the SNES version to the Game Boy Advance, and oh boy, does it suck. There is so much wrong with this port. For a start, we are now zoomed right in on the action, making it difficult to see where the hell we are meant to be going. The controls don't feel right, there's slowdown, the audio is scratchy, and they've redesigned the stages. Oh, and what about the pathetic attempt at Andy Asteroid stage? Items falling down the screen does not look like items zooming down a warp pipe, Game Titan. Earthworm Jim 3 is actually a pirated port of the Sega Mega Drive game. It was developed by Hummer Team in 1997. The game runs on the Donkey Kong Country 4 engine, which is of course another fake game. This version includes 3 different stages based off New Junk City, What the Heck, and For Pete's Sake. Each stage is split into 2 parts, each half of the stage has a boss. Jim can attack with the whip and gun, which can be chosen by pressing the select button. However, the player is forced to use the whip when jumping and the gun when hanging from something. Now, considering this is an unofficial game and buggy, it still plays better than the rubbish on the Game Boy Advance. In 2009, Gameloft released a Java version of Earthworm Jim onto mobile phones. This is actually pretty nice for a non-smartphone game. The controls are a little odd, with up being jump and the gun being like that on the Game Boy and Game Gear, where you access the gun by holding the attack button and use the whip by tapping the attack button. This version of Earthworm Jim would go on to be remade for the Xbox 360 and PS3 as Earthworm Jim HD. Unfortunately, as of making this video, neither version is available, or at least here in Japan. Where will people learn that digital software and digital only downloads suck balls? If this was available to buy, I could just go and pick up a second-hand copy, but no. Let's take a look at all those versions of Earthworm Jim running side by side.